Why will heat pumps have a huge economic and energy impact in Europe? Heat pumps are devices that use energy from the environment to heat or cool rooms. They are increasingly used in the construction industry because they can significantly reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions. In this episode, we will outline how heat pumps affect the economy and energy, the energy efficiency of buildings, their benefits and challenges, and the prospects for developing this technology in Europe. Improving the energy efficiency of buildings means a significant reduction in household running costs. Heat pumps play an important role in this process as they can provide thermal comfort with minimal electricity consumption. Heat pumps work on the principle of a reverse refrigeration cycle. That is, they extract heat from a low-temperature source, for example air, water, or ground, and transfer it to a high-temperature consumer, for example a heating or cooling system. In this way, heat pumps can heat or cool rooms even when the ambient temperature is lower or higher than the desired temperature. According to Eurostat, almost half of the energy consumed in the countries of the European Union is used for heating, air conditioning, and cooling. More than 70% of this energy comes from fossil fuels, mainly gas. At the same time, the property sector, in the form of residential and commercial buildings, is a significant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions in Europe, accounting for 40% of total energy consumption and 35% of energy-related emissions in the EU. These emissions are partly due to the direct use of fossil fuels in buildings, for example coal, oil and gas used in boilers for heating, and electricity generation, water heating, lighting, electrical appliances, cooling systems. If the electricity used to drive the heat pump comes from renewable energy sources, for example wind, solar, or biomass, heat pumps can be virtually CO2 neutral. In this way, heat pumps can contribute to the European Union's climate goals of achieving climate neutrality by 2050. One of the European Union's energy targets is to reduce energy consumption in residential and commercial buildings. This can be achieved through a variety of solutions, including better insulation, the use of solar energy, and the installation of heat pumps. According to a McKinsey report, such measures could reduce electricity and gas demand by up to 40% and create 2 million new jobs in the EU. Heat pumps are particularly important because they reduce dependence on imported natural gas, the main source of heating in Europe. Ember data shows that by 2021, 30–40% of gas from Russia was used to heat buildings. Heat pumps are also much more energy efficient, 3 to 5 times more efficient than gas boilers. In the wake of Russian aggression in Ukraine and rising energy prices, more and more Europeans are choosing to install heat pumps in their homes. According to the European Heat Pump Association, EHPA, the heat pump market in Europe reached a record sales level of more than 3 million units in 2022. Air-to-water pumps, which can be easily connected to existing heating systems, were the most popular. As a result, Europe reduced its demand for natural gas by 4 billion cubic meters per year. The EHPA reports that by the end of 2023, there will be more than 20 million heat pumps in use in Europe, representing 14% of all residential buildings. This is significantly more than planned in the EU's REPowerEU strategy, which only aimed to reach this level in 2026. The EHPA predicts that the number of heat pumps in Europe could rise to more than 60 million by 2030, again exceeding the EU targets. This year, 15 million new pumps are expected to be installed, including ground source and water source pumps. This will be influenced by a ban on the sale of fossil fuel boilers from 2030 and the removal of subsidies for such systems from 2025. In addition, emissions from heating fuels will be taxed under the ETS from 2027, increasing the attractiveness of heat pumps as a source of low-carbon heat. To meet the European Union's ambitious greenhouse gas reduction targets, large-scale production and installation of heat pumps will need to increase. According to an analysis by McKinsey, more than 130 new production facilities and more than 200,000 skilled workers will be needed in the industry in Europe by 2030. Such investment will also bring economic benefits, as imported heat pump parts can be replaced by European ones, increasing the sector's revenues by €57 billion by 2030. Heat pumps also have great potential to save energy and reduce heating costs. According to a report by the International Energy Agency, IEA, heat pumps will reduce Europe's gas demand for heating by 21 billion cubic meters by 2030. In addition, heat pumps could reduce global carbon dioxide emissions by 500 million tons in 2030, equivalent to the current emissions of all combustion cars in Europe. Heat pumps are becoming increasingly popular not only in Europe, but also in the US, Japan, and other countries, where they provide an alternative to gas furnaces and air conditioners. If the current rate of growth in sales of heat pumps continues, they will provide at least 24% of the world's heating needs by 2030 and could reach up to 52% of the heating needs of buildings by 2050, the IEA predicts. Heat pumps are an increasingly popular heating solution in Europe, where the market for these devices will reach a record high of more than €14 billion in 2022. According to the industry portal Carbon Brief, sales of heat pumps increased by 38% year-on-year and doubled compared to 2019. Heat pumps are particularly common in the Nordic countries, Switzerland and France, where they are the dominant heating technology in new buildings. The heat pump market is also growing rapidly in other countries such as Germany, Poland, and the Netherlands. In Ireland, Portugal, and the UK, the growth rate is lower, but still significant. The growing popularity of heat pumps is influenced by regulations, CO2 taxes, and financial support for investors, among other factors. Chinese suppliers have a limited presence in the European heat pump market, but their exports of components and equipment to Europe are growing rapidly and will exceed €1 billion by 2022. Heat pumps are becoming increasingly popular in Europe, especially in countries that are introducing restrictive regulations for heating buildings. The highest growth in heat pump sales in 2022 was in Belgium, Slovakia, and Poland, where the market for the equipment will double compared to the previous year. Poland achieved a record result with more than 203,000 heat pumps sold, accounting for almost 30% of all heating systems installed that year. Air source heat pumps dominated, but sales of ground source and water source heat pumps also increased. Poland led heat pump sales in Europe, ahead of Germany, where demand was driven by rising fossil fuel prices and CO2 emission charges, as well as a shortened deadline for the mandatory use of renewable energy in heating systems. Many European countries are encouraging their use through various forms of financial support. In Finland, for example, it is possible to receive up to €4,000 in subsidies to replace oil heating with a heat pump. In France, the amount of the subsidy depends on the household income and can amount to several €1,000s. In Austria, up to 20% of the cost of installing heat pumps in new buildings and up to 35% in retrofits can be reimbursed. In Denmark, subsidies range up to €3,300 for air pumps and up to €4,800 for ground source pumps, for both new and old buildings. In Germany, support for air pumps can exceed €15,000 and is expected to be available until 2030. While in Sweden, a 30% tax credit is available for the labor costs of replacing a heating system with a heat pump, up to a maximum of €5,000 per year. Thank you for watching the video. Leave a comment and subscribe to the channel. See you next video.